but I'm good. I'm better than I thought I was gonna be with all the stuff going on. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Same
Hmm.
here. I mean, things are fine. I mean, it's just a good time to reflect on things.
Yeah.
You're running around, and so take advantage of the time you're not running around to do stuff you thought you kind of put on the back burner because you had other things that you had to do immediately.
Yes, absolutely. I know. I think that's the reason why so much stuff is going on. Everyone's sitting at home and so much change is happening. You can't turn away, you know?
No, no,
You can't turn away. All right, we're live.
beautiful.
Yes, we're gonna let some people come into the space, as they say. How is California? I mean, you guys are a little bit away from all of the.
Well, we initially were hit with the COVID thing, and then I think Newsom responded pretty quickly, and particularly the mayor of San Francisco, so that a lot of the stay-at-home stuff happened, and we managed to not have as hit as severely as New York and other places.
Yeah.
But I think also maybe the strain of the virus is different here because we've got it from Asia. I think you guys got it from Italy.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I remember I was sick in February, really, really bad, like flu. And I'm like, what is going on? So I think I might have gotten it. I,
Oh
I don't
wow.
know. I mean, I've been blessed and not been sick. I've been staying in the house or whatever. So, it's
Yeah,
nothing
I
for me
know.
to stay
I have
inside.
friends in New York. I have several friends in New York who had
Hmm.
gone through it. One friend who was on a ventilator for 3 weeks and had
Wow.
an induced coma, and now he's doing okay. But
Oh my
that's
goodness.
crazy.
That is crazy. Ugh.
And he's a perfectly healthy guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm. But he's okay now.
Yeah, he's okay now.
Good. Good.
But no, it's scary. My older son lives in New York, so
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't even been out protesting, so I worry about him a little bit.
Yeah. Right, because that's the next wave, right? Of people who've been out protesting.
Yeah, I know he's been out doing that. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we're gonna keep them lifted up in prayer and hopefully it's all good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's get a little bit into this whole thing. I'm so excited that we're talking. I mean, it's been how many years has it been since we were
It's been a
trying
number of years.
this thing? A number of
I think we
years.
met at a dinner thing after Aida or something.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. And since then you've like written a whole maybe two operas or I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love writing operas,
That's
so
awesome.
it's kind of been my life work since X. When I did X, it's like I caught the bug to write operas.
Yes.
Yeah.
We love that. We love that. So talk a little bit before we dive into the opera conversation. I wanted you to talk a little bit about how you got started. What was your first instrument? All that good stuff.
Oh well, my first instrument was piano. I started playing piano when I was little. I guess maybe first grade or something like that. And we were living in Princeton, New Jersey. And I remember my father was musical. He was a musician. So
Mhm.
he was playing some Mozart thing, and so I went to the piano, and he had just played it, and I started playing. I started playing some of it.
Yeah.
I figured it out, and I didn't know how to read music or anything. He said, "Oh, we got to get this boy piano lessons." That was it.
Yes.
So I started piano lessons, and I was fortunate because in Princeton they had this school called the Francis Clark School,
Uh-huh.
kind of music school, and so I could go there for private lessons. But then they also had a group lesson with the cardboard keyboard. Then you
Hmm.
have to sing everything that.
Wow.
So they put something on the board and you sing it and you play it on the cardboard keyboard. So
Okay.
I began to associate the whole thing. Like now I still see a keyboard in my head and and I hear the notes. So it's that kind of thing. So I can and then we had to do a recital every month, and
Hmm.
part of the recital you had to do a piece of your own too. So
Oh,
so that's when I write my little pirate song or something,
yeah.
So I did that, and then I sort of left that. But when we moved to Pennsylvania, State College, Pennsylvania, and I still had piano lessons, but that whole compositional side, I didn't do any of that. But so
Mm-hmm.
I just did study classical piano for a number of years, and then my father was going to go to Italy when I
Mm.
was in 10th grade. So my 10th grade, I was in Italy.
Oh, wow.
And so what happened was I couldn't bring all my piano music. And at first we didn't have a piano in Italy, so we were going to rent a piano. So I would go to the Steinway store and practice. And my father had gotten this record, Monk in Italy, Thelonious Monk record.
Yes, yes.
And I had listened a lot. I listened to Art Tatum and other stuff, but something about Monk's music really hit me.
Mm.
So I started learning the songs on the Monk's music on it, and so I started playing Monk, Symphonious Monk, on the piano when I was in the piano store, and they let me play longer, So I
Wow.
kept playing the Monk stuff, and so
Yeah.
I did a concert in Italy playing Monk stuff, but Chopin and
Hmm.
Beethoven, Schumann, and stuff, and then also Monk, and then one of my own pieces. So that was sort of began the whole thing.
Wow, that must have been a thing for no one else was doing that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was interesting, and it was funny, and that was also where I got interested in opera too, because when I was in Italy, because it wasn't because I was going to we were going to go to La Scala, but we didn't get to go to La Scala. I've always regretted that,
Yeah.
but I had a teacher in Italy uh, she taught a philosophy course, and it introduced me to all these ideas about opera, like
Hmm.
Kierkegaard and Nietzsche and all this stuff. So I read that, and then I got me really interested in the form, and the possibility of writing opera.
Yeah. So so you where'd you go to college?
I went to Yale, and
Yeah.
after that, so at Yale, I was initially a philosophy major, and then but I was doing music all the time. I had a band, and we were
Yeah.
playing all over the place and doing that. We did concerts in New York and stuff, and then
Yeah.
um, I had a course in 19th century music, supposed to be with Robert Bailey, and he's
Uh-huh.
a Wagner scholar.
Wow.
So the way he taught it was there was stuff before Wagner, and then it was Wagner, and
Mhm.
then Strauss and stuff like like
Oh, there you go.
so there I go, boom. I'm force fed. I was pissed at first, because no Chopin, no Brahms, no Beethoven, very little Beethoven stuff. What kind of class is this, for 19th century music? But I learned about Wagner, and I started writing parodies of
Mhm.
because they had Wagner with leitmotifs and stuff. So I started writing music with leitmotifs.
Right,
So,
right. Oh, just
so I
wow.
wrote these suites with
Mhm.
leitmotifs, usually based on science fiction novels and stuff.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay. I think that people should write more operas. That's the next. That should be the future. Is to write science fiction operas.
oh yeah, I wrote one of my second opera was science fiction opera.
Really? Is it good?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy opera. No, no one's ever done it since, but it was out there.
It was
It's
out there.
hard because it's because you have to present a whole new story. You have to create, first of all, the environment, what the it's like. So
Yeah.
in my case, it was a world with two moons and mostly water world.
Okay.
With
Okay.
islands. Okay, so I was creating this. So you're creating this whole different thing, and then I had transformed humans who were living in the underwater, called the Geschulta, right? So they
Hmm.
were, so it was pretty wild to do.
That's pretty wild. You have to send me. Is it a good? Is there a good aria in there for a soprano?
Oh yeah, yeah. I wrote some soprano arias in there. Yeah,
All
I
right.
have. I had. Uh, actually, there are a number of them. Yeah,
All
it
right.
actually has. It's a fun opera. I wrote a lot of it for my friend Thomas Young
Oh
because
yes.
I had him as the inspector.
Aha.
So I wrote some high D's and stuff for him.
Oh well, I don't know about that for her, but
It's some crazy stuff for him. But
yeah.
I've always said that the inspector could be a woman or a man. So
Okay.
it could be like a high soprano, like a Queen of the Night type soprano could do it.
Okay.
as a could be the inspector too, because it's not really any gender, so it could be whatever.
We love that. We love that. Things that can switch. Yes, exactly. This is 2020 now, right? Right.
Yeah,
So they call
exactly.
you the dean of the African American opera composers, right?
Well, Dean,
They say that. Like what is that when you hear things like that? And I
it
wonder
means I'm
what
old. That's all.
ah well you have a big birthday coming up next year. You got to write
Yeah, yeah,
something
next
for
year,
that.
right? That's right. That's right. It means you're old. That's what it says. I'm not even gonna take it farther than that.
Right, right. Vintage, vintage, I say vintage.
Okay.
Yes.
No, but that's nice. You know, I mean, I remember we used to always refer to William Grant Still as the dean of African American composers, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you're in good company.
I always think of William Grant Still as
Exactly.
like.
Exactly. But why opera? Why what is it? What is it about opera? Because I know you love opera. You light up when you talk about opera.
Well, I love telling the story. I like telling music with stories,
Mm-hmm.
music with the stories, and also for me, it gives me a chance to address uh, issues of my time, of our time. You know, from
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X to Almost Died to Central Park Five. You know, and a lot of it is because I was always interested in politics and always interested in political realm. So in a way, this is my way of addressing that through music. And
Yes.
then also I think it's to take a listener on a journey from in terms of the evolution of a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to me, and to create a world of
Mm-hmm.
music, which the opera is. You know, I like it was funny because when I compared to, like, for example, chamber music. We write chamber music. You write this little piece. It's kind of like the Whitman's candy box. You know, the Whitman sampler thing. You know, you
Yeah.
have a little nice candy here and a nice candy there. But I'd rather write a piece where people have to inhabit a world and they get immersed in a musical world, and
Yes.
that's more transporting to me.
Yes, exactly. Then, and I always say, it's fantastic to go to the symphony and to go to
Oh, I
chamber,
love that too. Yeah, yeah.
piece. But when you go to the opera, it's all of the art forms, all put together, and it's like you get into this world, with language and music, and you could, I had this composer write something for me, and I was like, I don't even know where we are. Like it wasn't infused in the music. And so I was like, okay, where are we? Are we in Africa? Are we in Asia? Are we in America? And it just didn't have that flavor in it. So which colors the singing, it
Oh, of
colors
course.
the text and all of these things. And so, opera is
And
that.
and voices, I mean, growing up and listening to Leontine Price, I mean, who can fall in love with that, with her voice?
Yes.
I was listening. I was watching one of the day we had a Met broadcast for her last performance as Aida at the Met, and she still was like killing it.
Killing it, like at the top. At the top. We all
Yeah, yeah, no, oh,
aspire.
I know, no, I know. So and my wife always told me, she's a singer, and she always told me that, Miss Price, and how incredible she was, and
Yeah.
so it was amazing to hear her, and I think that I fell in love with those voices, that kind of the
Mm.
power of the voice, you know, rather the rather than musicals with the body mics and all that stuff, to
Mhm.
hear the resonance and the carrying of a voice in a room, and
Yes.
vibrato too. I love the vibrato.
We love you. I love that. No, no, no straight tone. I mean, there's a
No,
place for
no,
that,
man.
right?
I remember I had a fight with Steve Reich about that once. We were on a panel, and he
Uh-huh.
said he can't stand vibrato, right? And he said something about he was gonna he had records of Porgy and Bess, and he was gonna tear him up because it was like and I said, "Are you crazy?" I said, so we got into it. So I finally said to him, music doesn't have to sound like the high-lows.
Facts. Big facts, right?
Oh, really? and
Oh.
and because it became a whole kind of trend in new music that they were afraid of vibrato,
Mm.
afraid of that sound, and And I think they're afraid of the emotional power,
Mhm.
of the voice. And I think that's a big part of it. And that's when I want that visceral response. I want the response to the voice,
Yes.
how voice can move you and take you places.
Exactly. It's nothing like standing next to a singer as a singer on stage and to see and feel and hear the voice of another singer just pour out of their body out into the house. I mean, it's visceral to stand next to it, you
Oh
know.
yeah, my wife talks about standing next to Grace Bunbury and what I felt like. It's just
It's like you're not even worthy, right? You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty amazing. They can resonate your body.
Yes, yes, exactly. I've been blessed enough to stand next to a few people, and I was just like looking over, like, oh my God, yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
So you talk about like telling compelling stories, telling political stories, and with Amistad and X, and now Central Park, which I mean, with it, what was it? We can even talk about that. What was it like to get that phone call that you won a Pulitzer for that? But like where you were telling those kind of stories in a time where Black people weren't able necessarily to tell those stories without the critique, right? To put those
Right.
on the big stages. So talk a little bit about that, because for us singers, who came just after like X and and Amistad, and we've not been able to do those operas or to be able to be as political in that way. So talk about that.
Well, it was fun for me. I mean, doing X was a great adventure because it was my first opera,
Hmm.
and so I felt as if I were kind of inventing things as I went along. It's because also incorporating everything I learned in jazz and improvised music into it as well. Because Malcolm was around the music all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and if you read the autobiography, there's all these references to, he's at this club here when he was a hustler and that. And then I heard a story. My Billy Taylor told me a story about when he did his radio show at WBAI in New York. He'd do this jazz show, and Malcolm would deliver a sermon first, and then they have the jazz show after it. Malcolm would always stay to hear the musicians afterward.
Really?
So I realized this connection he had to the music. So that was part of what some of the ideas about X, but it's also showing the evolution of particularly jazz from the 30s and 40s to the 60s with the more avant-garde, John Coltrane and Miles and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was kind of an inspiration. And then the operatic part of it was actually, I think my models were a Wagnerian stuff because I had studied a lot of Wagner
Yeah.
operas, and I think I was interested. I thought of Malcolm as a tragic hero.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a Siegfried. He's going through his transformation. He even changed his name. So each act of the opera was a change of name. You know,
Oh,
so
okay.
the first act is Malcolm Little to Detroit Red. Second act is Detroit Red to Malcolm X. Uh, third act is Malcolm X El Haj Malik.
Yes, yes.
So you have that kind of transformation, and
Mm-hmm.
then the final horrible irony is that we killed him as African Americans killed Malcolm X, and that was always. I mean, unlike with the Martin Luther King assassination or things like that. And so it's in a way, how did we get to that point? We killed one of our leaders, and what was that about?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. So I thought that's why it makes it to me a really tragic story. But at the point at which he really found his message, and his message, the kind of universal message that he was going to convey, he was struck down. So.
Right. And so relevant for the times because so many of these young people who are out protesting, like they need to see this opera on the stage. They need to see it presented so that they see the history, they see the storytelling, and they can relate, I think, oftentimes to someone as, what they say, radical as,
Right, exactly. And he's been a symbol, but particularly for hip hop artists. I mean, they all look to Malcolm X. I mean, even hip hop. I remember I was trying at one point. They were talking to me about maybe doing a production in Brazil of
Uh-huh.
the opera, and one of the main backers was a hip hop star in Brazil because his idol was Malcolm X. You
Yes.
know, but it didn't actually come to fruition, unfortunately. But I think that but the connections that are made, you know, and how important he is as a symbol to the movement and the movement that's happening now too. I
Yes.
mean, I think, you know, he had a he spoke about police brutality in quite a direct way, you know.
Oh, yes, he sure did. He sure
And
did.
I think it would be pertinent today. So
Mhm.
hopefully, you know, we can get a revival of X soon, at, you know, so at some point.
I don't even know why people aren't knocking down your door at this point. After
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah,
yes, and I
yeah,
can say Louise. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not really kidding, but I'm
yeah,
amazing.
definitely.
Amazing. No,
Yeah.
and what about Amistad? So Amistad is after is the next opera.
Yeah, almost I premiered in 1997, so it was like 11 years after X, and I was it was done in Chicago, Lyric Opera Chicago, and then done in Spoleto. I did the Spoleto Festival.
Right.
Uh, yeah, and that's great. You know, I was really excited with that, and hopefully that can be revived at some time too. So
Absolutely. Now, was that before the movie?
yeah, both were before the movies. I
Look
mean,
at
X was before Spike Lee's Malcolm X,
yeah.
and Amistad. Amistad was really funny because um, actually Spielberg stole the idea from me because I'll tell you a story. I was having dinner at Henry Louis Gates's house
Uh-huh.
in Durham. He was teaching at Duke at
Yeah.
the time. It was Thanksgiving, so I go to dinner this and so Skip asked me, you know, what's your next project? And I said, well, I want to do this opera about the Amistad. And it turns out that someone from DreamWorks was there at the dinner.
Uh-huh.
So I told him all about the opera and what I was going to do, blah, blah, blah. He took it back to Spielberg and boom. So then Spielberg started, and then Spielberg was so concerned that, because he wanted to kind of monopolize the attention about the subject, et cetera,
Mhm.
that, and also because he had a lawsuit at the time for plagiarism because he plagiarized the screenplay from an African American writer. So, so, so he he was concerned about it. So he actually rushed the opening of the movie. So in Chicago, it actually opened 2 weeks before the opera did,
Mhm.
but the rest of the country is after the opera did. And he actually rushed the editing and everything. Probably one of the reasons he didn't win an Oscar was because he rushed putting out the movie.
See,
But
you right. That's what happens.
yeah. So it was very funny. It almost came out simultaneously with
Mm,
Spielberg's thing. But
mm,
I've been working on it for years.
right. Wow. Wow.
And actually, they were when they were going to have a trial, they were going to call my cousin Talani, who wrote the libretto, as a witness because Spielberg's contention was that the way he did the movie is the only way to tell the story, and we didn't tell the story that way.
Wow.
So Talani was going to testify, no, it's not the only way to tell the story.
Wow.
And
No, it's not. No, it's not.
yeah. So that was the argument in that plagiarism suit.
Right.
Well,
Was that settled or?
yeah, it was settled because they rule. I think they ruled that the original author borrowed some things for her text.
Mm,
So it was great. It was complicated, but
yeah.
yeah. The Amistad, what Spielberg did was very careless because he put out books about the Amistad that had characters that were in the movie that were in the history that didn't reflect the history. So
Mm,
I don't think he served the history well.
right, right. Oh, that's like an old story, isn't it? It just keeps,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, yeah. So why Central Park Five? Because I remember running into you. Was it an opera conference or something? We ran into each other, and you're like, "I'm writing a new thing," and I think I have something for you. But then it wound up being, I think that there were all men in the show, and I'm not even sure if it was
Yeah.
Park or not. Um, but talk a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, I had another one. Yeah, that's gonna write. Yeah, that's another one. That's called Darkest Light of the Heart. That was about a woman who forgave Dylan Roof.
Oh,
Oh,
we'll
about the
talk
shootings
after this live, man.
yeah, yeah. So, but this so yeah, Central Park Five came about. I was uh, Kevin Maynor sent me a libretto of by Richard Wesley about the Central Park Five, and to see if I would recommend someone to do the music for it.
Mhm.
And so I read the libretto. And I said, man, I have to do the music for it.
Hello, right?
Hello. No, no. It's like, because this is something I'd be really excited to do. And at that point, the libretto didn't have Trump in it, but I said you have to have Trump in it.
That's right.
Trump has to be in it because that's the beginning of his career, and he used what he did to those young men, and he still hasn't recanted, et cetera. So I think it'd be important to do it that way, and then so I started working with a librettist on it, and we did an initial performance in Newark in 2016. That was kind of put together pretty fast, and then finally I did we had it really together. So it was in 2019 when we did it in Long Beach.
At Long Beach. Was Long Beach, did they come after you, or did you shop it to other companies?
I was talking to a company, but Andreas Midisek, who's with Long Beach, approached me about doing. I approached him at one point about doing one of my operas, and then he said he was interested in doing working with me on Central Park Five, and that we could do some revisions, and so we just that's how that came together.
That's fantastic.
So that was fantastic.
That is, I mean, I just, because we were both a part of the Black Opera summer, with me being in St. Louis doing Terrence's.
Oh, right, I remember, yeah.
Yeah, Fire Shut Up in
Right.
My Bones, and then you guys
With
were
Terrence's,
doing Central Park Five, and then Blue was happening at Glimmerglass. We
right.
all were working, and we didn't get a chance to
No, yeah, of course.
pieces, and
I
that.
haven't heard that Terrence's piece. I just heard a little part. I heard a little part with you, but like 2 minutes or something. But I haven't heard.
Yeah.
Can you hear the whole thing? Is it possible to hear it?
No,
No.
no. And the Mets doing it, and I'm sure they're gonna, do all kinds of extra things in it. But yeah, it's a beautiful piece. I mean, he writes so gorgeous and lush, those melodies and all that kind of stuff. But the whole first act is pretty much his mother, Billy, which is me, Charles Blow's mother. And so all of Act One, I'm just running around, 30-second scene changes, all this stuff. So
Oh, wow.
it's nice to have a whole act to yourself, but when you don't stop singing for 50 minutes, 40 minutes or whatever, it's
Wow, it's crazy.
yeah, but it was fantastic. It was I think everybody's pieces were tremendously received, that summer.
There was, yeah. And Blue, I haven't heard any. I've only heard a little bit of that too. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I did go to see it. I went to see it after we closed in St. Louis. My husband and I drove up to Glimmerglass to see it, and it's quite powerful. It's quite
Oh,
powerful.
great.
And fitting for the time. Everybody's piece is fitting for the time. Who knew that when we're able to come back to the theater, that particularly your piece and Blue, in a way, are just ripe for performances. I mean, our piece is a little bit different about, the subject matters are different, but still very relevant and important. And I love that it's all Black, and it's so much Black excellence in that piece, in that way, But as far as critical, I mean, you guys are like prime for like big debuts in places. And I hope that people
I
in
hope
the
that
industry,
happens. Yeah, it's great.
wake up and pay attention. What was it like to get the Pulitzer call? I don't know. They call your agent. Like what?
Well, what's funny is the Pulitzer doesn't call you. What they do is they just put out a press release, right? So you find out when everyone else finds out. So I was actually in the middle of a faculty meeting on Zoom with the music faculty, and we were talking about stuff, and all of a sudden my phone rings. So I say, okay, well, I'll pick it up. And so I'll just say I'm busy, but so I pick up the phone, and the person says, "Oh, congratulations!" I said, "Congratulations for what?" And they said, "Well, you won the Pulitzer Prize for music this year." And I said, "Really? What?" And so it was Franco Terry from New Music USA, because he saw the announcement. He called me up. And so I called to my wife, say, hey, I won the Pulitzer Prize, boom, And then I forgot to mute the Zoom on the meeting. And so everyone in the meeting heard that I won when I found out.
Everyone's like yelling and screaming.
Yeah, it was like crazy. Yeah, but that was really funny. And then everything blew up. I couldn't even be in the meeting because I had all these calls from the press and stuff. But it was really, but it was funny because they don't actually call you to say what you ahead of time or anything. Nothing. It's
Nothing.
just do a press release, and that's it.
That's incredible. Like because they want to have the same, I guess everyone to have the same reaction, right? They don't want it to get leaked out or.
Yeah, exactly. It was really funny. So,
Yeah.
but that was exciting to get that recognition, and
Yeah.
also I think to encourage other artists, particularly African American artists, to continue that they can do political work, and they can do work that has that kind of meaning and that kind of significance, and not to be afraid of that. No,
Yeah.
don't be scared. I mean, you can that that it's possible to make a difference with art.
Yes. I mean, and what's the reason why we're doing it? Why are we doing it anyway if that's not the purpose? You know what I mean? If that's not the thing, is to tell the truth and tell the stories. And it's going to be very interesting after the whole world has been turned upside down. And I'm sure you've seen this because you're old enough to have lived through the movement, the civil rights movement.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Like how different was that time? I mean, you were a different man too. You know what I mean? Like same man, but a different, you know what I mean? Just not been
Yeah. No, it was funny. I'm old enough that when we had the Bobby Seale trial, my freshman year at Yale, right?
Uh-huh.
So actually, I worked for the Black Panthers. So I was supposed to monitor, I was in charge of the part of the demonstrations,
Yeah.
so to make sure that, also looking at the confrontation with the National Guard and all that stuff, because we were worried that it'd be like Kent State, there would be shootings, et cetera. So that was interesting experience. So I met a lot of radical leaders at the time,
Yeah.
and also the difference, there's some people come in just to exploit the whole situation,
Yeah.
because they want to have chaos. They're anarchists,
Yes.
like
Yes.
at the time was Jerry Rubin was like an anarchist, really,
Mm-hmm.
but and so the Panthers wanted to have a controlled demonstration, make the point. And for example, they didn't want the demonstrators to go to the green because the National Guard was at the green in New Haven.
Right.
So my instructions were to tell people that they were supposed to stay where they were and not go to the green. So Jerry Rubin starts yelling over a megaphone, "To the green." And I go, "No, man. No, man." What are you trying to get people killed? What is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's so there's always that dimension, in that, and in how demonstrations work, and et cetera, so yeah. And now it's even more complicated because you have white supremacists posing as so-called Antifa people, who
Yeah.
are actually doing the looting and stuff and trying to make the demonstrators look bad. I mean, that's what that is.
Yeah.
And then you have a government that lies about it, that says that, that tries to invent this whole scenario that they're left-wing agitators and the Antifa and all that stuff. Does the Antifa really exist?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
so I think this, and now it's labeled as a terrorist organization. I think so. We're at a really, really dangerous time, and that's really evident,
Yes.
and so that always worries me, keeps me up at night.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's a long way to November, and then whatever the
Yeah. I
outcome.
don't know, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be Berlin in 1931, so you got to be concerned.
Yeah. And ready for anything,
Exactly.
Yeah. So when we talk about the times, I mean, back, in the 60s and the 70s, I mean, the music colored so much of the movement, right?
Right.
And the one thing that I keep saying to myself is like, where is hip hop? Not the rappers, because that's different. Rap music that you hear on the radio, in my opinion. I'm old enough to be like, a child of the 80s, hip hop, 90s, growing up listening
Okay, yeah,
to.
exactly. That's what Featured People Central Park 5, because that was exactly what that is, 80s and 90s, right?
Yes, and I
So,
growing up during that time.
Public Enemy. Yeah,
Public
yeah,
Enemy,
okay.
NWA,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
new school, like all that stuff that was coming. And I'm from Philly. So, we grew up listening to, like neo soul and sounds of, Philadelphia and Gamble and Huff, Teddy Pendergrass, like, you know what I mean? And I grew up in a house
Yeah,
that
okay, yeah,
listened to a
sure.
lot of Motown, a lot of Stevie Wonder and, I mean, just all the sound, Berry Gordy. And so as somebody on the other side now, being my parents' age, I guess, well, a little bit older than them, but I'm like, where is the culture? Where's the music? Like, what's it gonna sound like? Like, what are the sounds of this time? As a composer, like if someone told you to write something for this time, like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, well, when Central Park 5 was easy because I could draw upon because it was 1989 when it happened.
Yeah.
And music's all connected with the whole thing, because the whole expression, for example, when they said they were wilding in the park,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
they were singing a song, Wild Thing, Tone Loc's song.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was what they were all. That was the popular song. So they were singing that song. So Wild Thing became Wilding.
Wow,
So they
dang.
say they were wilding in the park. And
Mm-hmm.
so this whole thing. So a lot of their response to, um, and the fear, I think, among particularly Trump and his white supporters,
Mm-hmm.
was what they saw as the hip hop revolution coming, the
Right.
hip hop taking over, hip hop becoming part of the mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
and as a threat to their aspirations to gentrify Harlem, gentrify the whole Upper West Side, etc. So I think that for example, when I was looked at videos at the time of the white protesters who wanted them to be lynched in Central Park, right?
Yes.
So they were there. They had signs saying "Do the right thing." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
Spike's movie also came out in 1989.
Yes,
Do
it
the
sure,
right thing, right?
sure did.
So my theory is that they were trying to put Radio Raheem in prison,
Oh,
and
oh,
that's why they was so urgent to put him in prison. Because in effect, symbolically, they were putting Radio Raheem in prison.
right. Wow. Wow.
And so they want, and they didn't care what, they at some point they didn't care which African Americans they picked up. They were just gonna pick up. They had to pick up somebody,
Somebody.
and they didn't bother look. Then they were holding. Actually, they had arrested already who was a serial rapist, a
Mm,
guy Matias Reyes, who actually committed the crime, and he was in custody at the time. And they never tested him. They never looked to see if he might have committed the crime.
damn. And so five
So
lives altered.
totally. I mean, and Corey Wise was actually in prison for 13 years as an
Yeah.
adult.
Yes.
So that was a tragedy. And so I wrote an aria for Corey when he gets out of prison, because I felt that he really needed to speak, because he's, in a way, his experience was different from the others. Yeah, because they all went to youth detention facilities and he went to adult prison.
Adult prison. Well, you could tell when the documentary series came out, and then you saw them in modern day, you could see that he was a whole different man than the
Right.
rest of the guys. And I think Long Beach took the aria today and put it online, I think. Uh,
Oh, right.
yeah, and I think
Nathan Granner is incredible tenor. Yeah. Oh,
he's tremendous. He's tremendously talented.
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. So you tenors, take that aria into your auditions. Hello.
Yeah, no, he did it, and I loved. I mean, writing that was great. That really was exciting for me,
Yeah.
and I think I think that's a, uh, that's important to know. And well, I had a chance to meet all the five in LA. They came to the ACLU. They were honored by the ACLU at a luncheon, and this was during the time we were just about to do the show. We were just before we were going to premiere in Long Beach. So all the cast, the five from my show were there, and the five from the Netflix show were there, and the original five were there.
Wow.
So that was fantastic. So they got to meet all their counterparts, who they were playing. Can you imagine meeting the character you're playing, and
No,
getting
you
to
never
hang
get
out
to
with them?
do that. You never get to do that at all.
Yeah, I know. So that they've really enriched their performances. I think they had a really strong feeling about it, and how the cast came together and what they were, how they were, and also reflecting on how, incidents they had with police. We all had I had incidents with police, too,
Yeah.
growing up. So, about, so we've all had this driving while black or whatever, that's happened to everyone,
Everybody.
so,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes white people are shocked to hear, but it's so common. It's happened to everyone, but not to the same degree. Not that necessarily get killed, or
Right.
or arrested for a crime you didn't commit, but it happens all the time. Just saw the movie No Mercy last night.
Yes.
That was very intense.
Wow. I haven't seen it, but I heard one of my colleagues talking about it on Facebook. Yeah, I mean, I remember an instance when my husband and I were driving and he was speeding a little bit and we got pulled over. And my first instinct was to take out my phone and press record. And I
Yeah,
just
that's
sat my
it.
phone next to me just in case, like if something happened
That's
to me.
smart.
Yeah.
So the invention of cell phone has been amazing. I mean, you think about, all these cases that we see, have been documented on cell phones,
Oh, yeah.
the video, and that's made a huge difference, been exposing, the everyday brutality of police,
Yes.
everyday harassment, etc. I
Mhm.
remember the first time I drove to LA, first time I came to LA, I was driving with my first wife and my friend Wes Brown, and I had a big fro then, so I had a big fro, and Wes had a fro too. So we stop at the police car turns on the alarm behind us, and I wasn't speeding or anything, so I stopped at the stoplight. And he comes in, and then I have to open the window, and he says to my wife, who was white, he said, "Are you all right, ma'am? Are you okay?" I'm like, "What?" I
Yeah.
said, thank God she didn't hate me then, but
Right. Thank God you took out the trash that day.
Shit. No, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
have to laugh
God.
to keep from crying sometimes.
Yeah, no, but I was stopped once on a road on I-91 north of Hartford,
Mm-hmm.
and they said someone meeting your description robbed a bank, and the guys had guns. They had their guns out, everything. I was driving up to do a gig in Boston. I didn't make the gig because they had to stop me and wait for backup, and
Mm.
mistaken identity.
Right. And how often does that like change the course of someone's life?
Oh yeah, thank God. I mean, my wife at the time was smart because I said, "That's taking so long, man." She was, "No, stay in the car."
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I stay in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have guns.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's no competition. Yeah. I'm gonna look and see if people have comments. So let me turn this down. I forgot to do this earlier, but I'm sure people are like making comments and hi everybody. Thanks for coming in. I didn't do this right. But talk about like you mentioned the success of Central Park 5 and younger and composers not being afraid to now tell the stories, tell the political stories. It's opened up this whole portal now where we can actually really tell the stories. I mean, listen, myself, I'm like now I can sing about some of the things that I want to sing and present
Yeah,
in
exactly.
titles, things that may touch a nerve with people, but they are my reality. I oftentimes think about those kind of things, when I do new works, when I want to program new works. I have one about when the Me Too movement uh, happened, and I had a friend of mine write a poem about young Black girls who are sexually molested, and it really triggered me. It really sparked me when I didn't see enough of Black women's stories happening, because the Me Too movement was started by a Black woman, and then everyone totally forgot that Tarana Burke
No,
was
yeah, of course, yeah.
that created it. And that was a spark for me to say, okay, I'm gonna have one of my friends who's a Black woman, and I asked a young Black composer to write a piece, and we came up with this dynamic piece. But every time I want to program it, I get nervous about doing it, because I'm like, how is it going to be received? But now I'm not.
That's great. That's great. That's great. That's important. Yeah, and yeah, I wonder if anyone's ever set some for colored girls, to music. I mean, I knew Zaki pretty well. I mean, that would be very
Mhm.
interesting to
That
do.
would be an incredible song cycle.
Yeah,
Incredible.
it would be. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that
incredible.
would be. Yeah,
Yeah. So
but no, actually that's exciting. It's no, it's exciting time because I think we can. I mean, I remember when I initially did X. I mean, I remember the New York Times guy say, "Well, you can't. I mean, operas are supposed to be about love. I mean,
Mhm.
why are you writing an opera about Malcolm X and all this stuff?
Yeah.
And I think that you know, opera can have a much bigger role to play, in what and examining things in our lives and the big movements in our lives, all those things,
Yes,
uh,
absolutely.
and so that was important to me. And besides, it was so funny. I mean, I said, well, it is about love. We mean Malcolm X. It's take Elijah Muhammad. You had in Street, or there's a there's a different kind of thing happening. I mean, might be paternal love
Yeah.
that disappoints. I mean,
Yes.
all that
Oh
stuff.
my gosh.
How turning against your father. I mean, it's nothing more primal than that.
No, yes, absolutely. And again, we need to see more Black stories. We need to see more, love stories. I was talking to and Gabe. I mean, and Abe. I'm gonna ask that question. My friend Abe, who is the head of the Lead Society in Minneapolis. But like, we need to see more of those, stories being told. More love stories. More, like you said, more stories about the paternal complexities, of
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah. But I wanted to talk a little bit about mentorship, because you talked about young composers, and my friend Abe was like, how can we encourage and provide mentoring to young people of color? I'm going to say Black composers, to make them into the great composers of the 21st century. That was his question.
well, I think that's very important to me, and something that I've been talking to people about trying to initiate a program for composers, African American composers and librettists, so we can see that happen, and it
Mm,
might be here at UCSD. I can do it with, and I've been talking to other people, Larry Edelson at the American Lyric Theater about it as well,
oh, Larry,
because
yes.
we're thinking ways in which we can encourage that, because they actually had it was this Opera America program for composers of color
Yeah.
euphemistically, and
Mhm.
they didn't pick one African American or a Hispanic as wasn't included as one of the composers of color. So
Mm.
that that can't happen again.
That can't happen. Right, right. And the argument will always be, well, either there was no one or the quality wasn't right. But I don't know.
No, no, because I mean, also it's getting the word out, making sure also that we're more flexible in terms of the aesthetic. I mean, what is the quality is what? You know, what
Mm,
are your what are your values? What do you value in it? Are
right.
you looking for someone with an original take on opera that might be different than yours,
Mhm.
or someone who comes from a different musical background than this conventional opera composer? or that didn't maybe go to a graduate school to study composition and
Right.
has learned a different way. So I think that's important. I mean, I think that there are a lot of, certainly there's not a paucity of African American composers
Mm-hmm.
around. I mean, there are a lot of people I think have a lot of talent, and so I think that to realize that opera could be a way where they could express themselves, and that as a vehicle for what their talent is the important part.
Yes. Do you think that access to the things that are necessary in order to improve the skill set is what holds people back? Because I know oftentimes that's the thing with singers, is that Black singers don't have access and resources in order to refine the technique, so you don't get into the schools, the some get into the big schools, but then they can't compete with the people that are there. They
Uh,
get on the raw talent, but then they're not casting operas, they're not given the opportunities. Or when you go, you're not good enough to, like, not good enough, you don't haven't had enough uh of the education. So when you get into the big, you can't compete when you get into the big young artist programs, because the languages are suffering, or the technique, it's all of these elements. So do you think, like, what, as far as composers are concerned, like, how do we change that? How is it access, is it resource?
well, access and resources are certainly part of it, and also I think, but also to value what you bring to the table.
Mm,
That's different. To value the difference.
value the difference.
I mean, to value the fact, to me, to value the fact that someone has, for example, might have a background in jazz, or might have a background in something else,
Mhm,
might have sung in church, or
mhm.
maybe which is important. I mean, it has different hearing abilities and et cetera. All that stuff in the oral tradition, all these things that artists bring to the table, that can be that we where we can we can their special gifts can be allowed to be shown. And I think it's also not like, I mean, a lot of schools are hung up on, what's your fach, and this is what you're supposed to sing, and this is, and they put limitations on artists right away,
Mm,
rather than necessarily
mm,
letting the artists discover things.
mm.
Like let them try different things, and also expand the repertoire. Not it's not all Mozart. It's great. I mean, Mozart's great, and Puccini's great. All that stuff's great, but there's other music too. I mean, other things that can explore other kinds of voices and other kinds of musicality. I think that's really important if we wanted to make it a living, breathing, vital form that it should be.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of the schools are now coming to terms with, everyone's like, oh my God, we haven't programmed a Black composer either ever, you know, or like, everyone's frantically, like, trying to find things to program for the next school year, or the next, season, or whatever. I know Manhattan School of Music is doing all, I think, Black composers for their next 2021 season. And oftentimes, the flip side of that also, Anthony, is we don't it's hard to get the music, as a professional performer. It's hard to access the music. Sometimes it's not available. I mean, we have a relationship, so if I want something, I just would call you and say, can you
Right, exactly, yeah.
but the access.
Well, also it has to do with whether composers have publishers and what their publishers are like, and that kind of thing. That I think is part of it too. Um, but now it's easier to make music available because of online, and we have
Right.
PDFs and all that stuff. So it's a little bit easier to do,
Mm,
and for the composer to do it himself or herself. And
yes.
I think that's something that we can, that's a benefit to us. And I'm glad to hear School of Music's doing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they haven't called me though.
Well, listen, Alexa is a Smith. I think she's my new friend now. I think she works at Manhattan School of Music. Please call Mr. Davis. Laquita Mitchell, I know that's your school. Please let them call Mr. Davis, and get it going. Get it going. I heard we had some really good questions, and I apologize for being so. I was just so excited to talk to you. I wasn't prepared.
That's
Like,
okay.
I'm
That's
normally
good.
prepared. I was just like, I cannot wait, you know. But Abe has another question. As a Native American pianist who grew up in northern Minnesota, there was not access to become fluent in languages and learn. Okay, not until he went to school. Okay. Oh, Russell Thomas, who is another one who needs to, you guys need to link up. But we aren't allowed to explore and make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that? How do you feel the pressures of being, I mean, you've been in the industry and you're a giant in my eyes in the industry, but how do you feel when you're producing these works?
Well, I mean, if you're not taking a risk, you're not trying. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, part of what intrigues me about a project is how am I going to do that? You know,
Mm,
asking that, and that's interesting to me. You know, and that poses a problem. And then you have to figure, you have to, it allows your music to grow, your musical language to expand, and to think about how to embrace different challenges, and the thing is, what's interesting is not to be put off by criticism. I mean, because I've had my share of criticism in the past too, and a lot of that comes out of people who are trying to defend the past, who are trying to actually keep you out the door. You have to realize that. So you have to, in a way, say, put that aside. Put that aside. Make judgments on your own about what you think is going on and what you can improve, how you can better prepare yourself for whatever,
yeah.
and how you can make your music better. I mean, I think that's interesting. And those questions and answering those questions are sometimes very different than the critique you get. I mean, I'll tell you a story. When I was doing X, when I did the Mecca scene in X, which was very different because it's, first of all, it's an Arab, part of it's in Arabic, and he's converting to Orthodox Islam, and so everyone said, "Oh man, that music is so slow and it's so different." And it's like, I mean, the opera just it comes very, it's so different and slow. It's too long. The scene is too long. So
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it. I said, I realized there was a problem. So I looked at it and I said, okay. So I looked at the music, and this is between when I did it in Philadelphia
Mm-hmm.
in '85 and then when I did it in New York City Opera in '86.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized what the problem wasn't that it was too long, it was too short, because it was a different world from the other parts of the piece. So it had to look different, first of all, in terms of the visual image, that how you see it, but
Yes.
also I had to let people settle into it.
Yes.
They had to settle into it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did, as I had this chant in the beginning before he begins his aria, where they're singing the morning prayer of the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And I put the morning prayer and set it to music, and it's just all as a G pedal, boom boom, and it just goes for a while with this thing, and then the thing just comes out of that, and they say, "Oh, you fixed it. What did you do? Cut it?" And no, I added this stuff. No, because that's it. It was it. You had to be transported. You had to have that time, because a lot of with opera, with large scale forms like this, timing is so important,
Yes.
and something you work on in your head, in your mind all the time. I replay operas in my head when I'm sleeping or something, and just
Yes.
before I figure out, oh, wait a second, is that the right time? Maybe I need another couple beats or something. It's something. All that stuff is because it's a dramatic art.
Right.
It has to convey the drama in it, so timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Yes.
And I realized, I mean, a lot of my preparation would help me do opera was writing music for dance, because
Oh,
I was, before I did opera, I did a lot of music working with dancers.
dance. Wow.
And so to this idea of how timing and rhythm and
Yes.
how it looked on stage and movement on
Yes.
stage, that
Ooh.
really made me think about how that would work in opera too.
Yes, I in Terrence's in Peace for Fire, there's a dance sequence, there's a lot of movement, and it gave me the idea to incorporate that more in programming that I do specifically for myself, like recital, concert form, whatever small venue form. It's like, okay, you need that. It's like, it's almost, it I think it colors the phrasing. And I think so often singers are so, I don't want to move, or you move from here to here, but to actually be a moving, breathing thing while you're
Yeah.
for the appropriate piece, I have more courage to do it when I see other people doing it. I'm like, well, I could do that.
Well, I thought the God, sorry, when I wrote that, I was thinking about, I was feeling the ocean, feeling
Yes.
the waves,
Yes.
like this kind of thing. So I was, and when we did in Chicago, Florence sang it, Florence Cravar, and they
Mm-hmm.
had, she had this, she looked like the ocean. Had this whole thing. I mean, it was, it's funny when we did it in Spoleo, it was a totally different take. She looked like Michelle Obama, with a briefcase and a lawyer.
Oh.
It was it was a wholly different take, but
Oh,
nothing I would have thought of, at the time, but it worked. It
that's
worked.
yeah.
It was like she's taking her case to the Supreme Court over like in the moral case of slavery, which
Right.
was never really addressed
No.
directly.
No.
So 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 it's interesting to me. I think a lot about it in terms of that. In Amistad, I thought a lot about the ocean and moving the ocean, and some of the inspiration from Peter Grimes, Benjamin Britten's opera, which I really like that Peter Grimes, and
Yes.
thinking about the sea interludes and how the ocean, the movement of the ocean, and
Right.
that's something that I try to get in the opera too.
Yes.
That
Yes.
that's there, but it's also that the ocean can become the tide, can become the momentum, can
Momentum.
become other things too. Come,
Exactly.
yeah,
Again,
yeah.
coloring like where we are, what are we doing? Like, I need to know. I need to hear it in order to feel
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And you need to feel it. You don't need to feel it. It's like feel it in your body too. It's
Yes.
something you feel. It's not just something an intellectual abstract thing. So that's something. You
Yeah.
know,
hmm So I
I
got a question from a fantastic soprano, Kiera Duffy. She said, "Forgive me if this has already been covered, but what are your thoughts on white singers singing, for example, the art songs or oratorios of Black composers?"
oh, that's interesting. I think that's important. I mean, I think it in a way it's I would be honored if someone saying my the music for my operas, arias, etc. Because out of the dramatic context, I mean, I would not see a white person playing, Betty Shabazz,
Betty.
or Malcolm X or
Right.
the Central Park Five. That would be wrong because we're dealing with a racist country and a racist time. So when you do racial identity, we can't do blackface anymore. Can't do that stuff.
Mm-mm.
That stuff's gone. So what you have to think about is but in the context of a concert, etc., I would think it would be fine because I think that it's presenting the music, and it would be sad if African American composers could only perform by
Absolutely.
African American composers. I mean, but I still think it's a I've tried to create a showcase for African American singers, and I really want to see them flourish and have the chance to perform these works.
Absolutely. And we need you. We definitely need you. So what are you working on now?
Well, actually, I've been during the COVID thing because everything stopped. I have no commissions. I had nothing, so I decided to go back to X because when I wrote X, I didn't do it on computer. It was no computer then. It was like everything's written by hand. So I decided to because I do excerpt concerts and stuff. So I decided to do excerpts and do input in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started doing that, I started saying, "Oh no, I can't. That's not cool. I got to fix this." so I've done a revision X I've been
Good.
working on lately, and I'm almost finished with that. And then I have other operas I want to do. Um,
Mm.
there's an opera called Darkest Light of the Heart, which is about Dylan Roof and the shootings at the Emmanuel Church, Mother Emmanuel Church.
Mhm.
Uh, it's from the perspective of the woman who forgave Dylan Roof,
Yes. Yeah.
which is really, I have found problems now with forgiveness. Why do we always have to forgive people? You know what I mean?
I agree.
It's
Why?
like, I'm not sure
No.
that's right anymore. But anyway, that's something I have to think about. And then also I have opera Tulani was going to work with me on about the Tulsa race massacre.
Oh yes. Yes, next week is
And
the 100th anniversary.
yeah, 100th is 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And then big project, I wanted to do The Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man as an opera. And
Oh,
I go propose it to the Met. I want to do that. Yeah, really want to do that. That's
yes.
something I was dreaming about when I first just thought about doing opera.
Yes.
And so I would like to see that happen. And so I'm working with my cousin on that, Talani, and hopefully with Bill T. Jones too, so we can do
Oh,
something like that.
phenomenal. They would be silly not to take that with you and Bill and Tulani. That's unbelievable. I mean, you sound like you have some good projects in your mind. We
Yeah, I
just got to
always
get
have
people to
projects. I
cut those
project. I
checks.
just have to find people to do them. That's what I want to do. So it's just, and I've done several operas. Like last few years, I did 2 operas that I just did it because I wanted to do them, and I didn't have commission or anything. I just wrote them. So I wrote this one, Lilith,
Yeah.
about Adam's first wife, and then Lear on the Second Floor, which is about loosely based on King Lear. So.
Yes.
Uh, and so sort of about I made Lear a woman, Nora Lear,
I did.
who has
Mm-hmm.
early onset dementia, and she has 3 daughters fighting for guardianship. So it's a different approach. Those are chamber operas that I try to, in my chamber operas, so sometimes have a comic side to it.
Yes.
So I like to do that, and also explore different kinds of topics. Like the Lilith one has kind of a mashup of divorce court in the Garden of Eden, and then also Fatal Attraction, like the movie Fatal Attraction. So it has both aspects of that.
Yes.
So it's kind of intense.
Wow. That's good though. We need that. We need that. And like I said, we need more love stories. We need more comedies, of course. We need more
Yeah, definitely. We need all that stuff.
all that stuff. Yeah. Russell Thomas, I want to sing that one. Which one what did you say? Ask him about the rate of commissions. Are companies actively no, that's the thing. We need some of these companies to please commission Mr. Davis and stop playing around.
Yeah,
We just want
yeah.
Pulitzer. Hello.
Right.
Please tag the companies that you work for and that you have relationships with. Share. The man is ready. He's home. Ready, pen in hand.
Yeah, right. So I'm here.
Get it done. So is anything else you want to share with us, Anthony? Like,
That's about it. I mean, I'm excited about the future, but hopefully Pulitzer opens some new doors for me to do some projects, and
absolutely.
yeah. So I'm excited about the future to see things happen.
Yes. Do you think that, well, the future is bright. I'm just going to be optimistic about it. And
Yeah, when things open up again, if we come back to it, I'm doing this summer. I'm working on an opera that's virtual. It's all going to be done like so that it's kind of remotely. It's like all kind of video opera that's just with people in different locations and stuff.
mm-hmm.
And it's only about 10 minutes long, so it'll be done as a video.
Wow.
So that should be fun. Be different
Yeah.
thing.
So
Yeah.
how can I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Anthony. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say, so how can some of the singers on here and the companies know how to reach you, but how can some of the singers, get some of your music and
Well, they
connect?
can contact me or G. Shermer. G. Shermer handles some of my earlier music, or
Mhm.
they can contact me directly and and tell me about what they're interested in, and I'll try to send them some music.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'm seeing if
You have my email, so or stuff like that, whatever.
all right, I'll put it down in the comments. If anybody have any more questions, and I apologize, you guys, that I didn't turn this on to see all these other comments, so we'll be able to we'll be able to go and back.
Oh, I can look at the chat. I didn't look at the
look
chat.
at the chat. Oh, okay.
Let me see. Let me look at the chat.
Because I want people to be able to.
No, I don't see anything. Okay. Yeah. So what's next for you, Karen?
For me, let's see. Well, my one wonderful gig just got canceled today.
Oh no.
Yes, I was supposed to do Leonora and Il Trovatore, but that's okay because I got an option to do. Oh, I'll talk to you after this is over. We're gonna talk after this is over anyway. But yes, it was canceled. And but my next I'm doing a virtual concert for Madison Opera. Opera in the Park we were supposed to do next month, but of course we can't. So I'm doing a virtual concert with some of my other colleagues for that. And I'm supposed to do Beethoven's Edgemont at Carnegie, which I'm so excited because I hadn't been back to Carnegie in a while, with the Orpheus Chamber organization. And so they're saying it's going to keep going. So I hope it keeps going. And then in the winter, we're doing the premiere, Joel Thompson's The Snowy Day.
Oh, great.
Yeah, opera. And so I'm looking forward to that. And as of now,
where's that supposed to be? Where's the Snowy Day supposed to be?
In Houston.
Houston, great.
Yeah, so hope so. We'll see. We'll fingers crossed. And my whole next year is like, things are been karate chopped. And
oh, I know. It's been that for everybody.
Yeah. But it gives us time to learn new things, like Goddess of the Water.
That's great.
Yeah, and time to collaborate and other things. And I mean, talk about commissioning. I talk about how artists commission composers, because I always feel like no one never tells you, that it's okay to approach or how you get a commission and all those things.
Well, yeah, that there are ways to do it, and also like chamber music go through Chamber Music USA, Chamber Music America. Also, with opera commissions, usually rely on companies and different things to get those going. I've gone out and gotten some grants myself just to keep my practice going, keep on doing what I love to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that we'll see what it's going to be in the post-COVID situation. We're all uncertain about what that's going to be. And yeah, so I think you can set, if artists if you're interested in doing something with the composers, approach them and talk to them about it. Because that was the oldest part of the tradition. It's like writing pieces for people. And for their particular voice, for your voice, for example. And that'd be beautiful. Think about it.
Oh, we're gonna do something. I am not even playing. I'm going on your phone like as soon as we're done.
Great.
No, we've been trying for so long that it's just we're gonna get some stuff done. Definitely. Let me see if anybody had. I think. Do you have regrets about changing things? Oh, that's a good question, Laquita. In the opera, per the opera house's request, like when things get changed.
Oh, opera house requests. Yeah, it's always it's interesting. Sometimes when I was doing Central Park 5 with Long Beach, I worked a lot with Andreas as he acted as a dramaturg, and he helped a lot in the shaping of the libretto and also how it would unfold as drama and to make it, so we could, in a way, it was editing things in parts of the opera so allow more space for other things later in the opera, and that really helped. It really helped a lot. Yeah. And so as a composer and a librettist, whatever, we don't have all the answers all the time. So
Yes.
working in collaboration with another person is something that really helps. Some third eye view of everything. So to be open to that, at the same time, to hold true to your vision. You know, if someone's asking you to compromise the vision, then you say, well, no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to do, because you know there are times when it's important to say, you know, things that would you think might damage the perception of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also with these political topics, et cetera, you see the messaging is very important, you know, how the message is being conveyed. And
Right.
sometimes you have to realize that white reception is different from African American reception.
Yeah.
And that happens at times. So you have to realize that, okay, uh, I'm not necessarily doing this with my ideal audience is not a white audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It has to include African Americans. I mean, I remember when I did X in Philadelphia for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, you're going to have a glossary of terms, you know, like, because I was talking about Nation of Islam and the Fruit of Islam and all
Mm-hmm.
these things about, you know,
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey, you
Right.
know, about African American history.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I mean, you could do that, but I'm saying, but don't you think that you, when you go to a Wagner opera, are you supposed to have a glossary of all the Norse gods and stuff?
Hey,
You know, so
yeah. Point
you know,
taken.
so I said, you know, so wait a second, you know, I mean, so I'm assuming that people know something about African American culture.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an assumption. But
Yeah.
but that may, and they said, well, the people, at least my artists might not know that. But I said, okay, but maybe they have to do some homework. That's all right. I
Yes.
mean, but realize it's important to know. I
Yes.
mean, that's it. That's it. You know, so you can't explain the wheel. You know, if you can't start and have to explain the wheel every time. You know,
No. Well,
so
hopefully a lot's changing.
that's changing. So I think so, but I think that so building upon, you know, all this incredible work that was done in the past and the
Mhm.
stuff that's been done in the past. I mean, I think that that's something that I look forward to, that the fact that the work we do now resonates with that, you
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
and and so the fact that we assume that you understand our history and that you understand something about our culture,
Hmm.
and something that shouldn't be too hard.
It
Because
should
if you
not.
don't do that, I mean, that's where racism begins. You don't understand anything.
You don't understand exactly. And if you are opening the door to commission an African American composer and you're hiring, telling Black stories, it's your responsibility. When I did Fire, I was a little bit disappointed by, I mean, not the piece, but just some of the critique that I saw. And I was like, well, you don't even know what you're watching. How do you critique something and you don't even know what you're watching? And then when I would get approached by Black women, and then they would have streaming tears down their eyes saying, thank you for representing us. And then I would go read some review that was like to critique the very thing that when Black people that was moved a Black woman. I was like, okay.
No, that happens too. It happens to me. I mean, Goddess of the Waters. I mean, I had critiques of Goddess of the Waters because, you know, and I think that because a lot of it is that particularly white critics have a master narrative in their head. They have a narrative in their head. They have how it's supposed to be told. So
Right.
Spielberg will tell the story the way they want it told. He'll tell them he'll fulfill that, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And part of that is this few good white men narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a few good white men. If you don't have a few good white men in the story, I mean, that's that. If you're going to tell Mama's died from the African American and African point of view,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's different.
Right.
Okay, that was my intent. My intent was not to do the great white man narrative. Say that, okay, John Quincy Adams saved a bunch of people who weren't slaves to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. That's not something I'm going to do. And that's not the way I want to convey the story, man. And it'd be irresponsible for me to do that. and I think part of it, you have to deal with that expectation, what I remember when we did X, the funniest review I had, because I keep some of the funny ones. One of the funny ones is Suburban Philadelphian paper, and they were right about the libretto and said that we didn't capture black language the way Ira Gershwin and DuBois Hayward captured black language. And I started laughing. I started laughing. I said, seriously.
God.
We'd have eyes, and it's, you kidding me? Uh,
No, they weren't.
I said, if you think that, that it was just laughable, because you realize that, when you deal with a parody of Black culture,
Hmm.
it has becomes the norm of what they think Black language is,
Right.
and how people express themselves,
Hmm.
and particularly someone like Malcolm X. No,
Mm-mm.
no. So I think that so that kind of thing that's embedded in some of our cultural understanding. I mean, and I also think is also always dealing with you know, the, I love Porgy and Bess on one level, but on another level, Porgy and Bess is like, oh my God, if that's it, we're in trouble.
We're in. Yes, sir. Exactly. Exactly. And we have so many options. Let's
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
do
and
something else.
that's not a Black opera. That's an opera about African Americans by white people, and
Mm.
people have to understand that. And there's perspective. I mean, even though it's a liberal, and I think Gershwin was a very forward-looking person. I mean, he
Mhm.
probably would have been blacklisted in the 40s and 50s
Right.
for his leftist leanings. So,
Mhm.
but I think that, but he's a forward-looking person. But I think that there is still a limitation in that perspective, and that what we Terrence is doing, what I'm doing, other people,
Yeah.
we're bringing that perspective. That's a different thing that we're trying to voice what our people are about,
Yes.
today,
Yes. Yeah.
not some nostalgia thing.
No. Mm-mm.
No, it's like, and I'm I remember my friend George C. Wolfe was asked to direct Porgy and Bess,
Mhm.
and he said, well, he'd only direct it if Porgy just walks off the stage at the end. It's
No.
like the whole thing's like, I said, what?
So that means he was not feeling directing Porgy and Bess at all.
No, it's funny. It's funny, but yeah, I actually I work with these high school students in Washington D.C. at
Uh-huh.
Duke Ellington High School,
Yes, of course.
and,
Yeah.
and when Washington Opera was doing Porgy and Bess,
Mhm.
they were assigned to do their own version of Porgy and Bess,
Uh-huh.
their take on Porgy and Bess. So they brought me in as a composer advisor. So
Uh-huh.
so I was working with them, and these two girls they're 15 years old, two African American girls. They came up with this idea. Okay, we're going to set Porgy and Bess in the day that Martin Luther King was shot. It's in it's in 1968,
Right.
and it's during the riots that were happening in Washington D.C. In the aftermath of it. Porgy Porgy is a Vietnam veteran
Mhm.
who lost the use of his legs in the war.
Mhm.
Bess is a Panther woman, and Crown is a Black Panther. Okay,
Yes.
for Crown's a Black Panther. So they had this whole thing, and I said, "Man, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. No one's ever thought, done anything like that." I said, "Okay," and then they said, then they had two composers. They had a African American composer and a Vietnamese transfer student who had come in from Vietnam. So they wrote a Porgy aria, how he lost his legs. It
Mhm.
was like the My Lai massacre. And it was the Vietnamese woman composer who wrote that.
Yes.
That was bad. I mean, I've never. Yeah, but they're just not. And then they had all this, the conflict, but it had his political thing. It was
Yeah.
a reworking of the story, and we put it with different music. I don't think Washington National Opera was ready for what they saw for that.
Like, listen, don't ask me to come to the party if you're not ready to hear what it did.
But I
Dance.
was excited. Then someone asked me, said, "Oh, you think that's okay for them to do that?" I said, "Yes,
Yes.
absolutely,
And
yes,
it's their history. Hello.
yeah, definitely. Hello,
Yes.
hello."
Ah, hello. Wake up, people. That's amazing. I had something else to say, Ashley, but I totally forgot because I was so enthralled in that conversation. Man, oh, I'm looking to see if we have any more. That's right, tell our stories. Uh yes, absolutely. Anyway. Woo! Anthony Davis. You know, that's my uncle's name. Anthony. I'm a Davis.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah,
My mother's a Davis. Mm-hmm.
it's funny.
So
Yeah,
I'm sure we
yeah.
have people.
If I look myself, I always get the unibrow instead of me.
Yeah. No, but thank you for coming on and talking.
Well, thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure all the comments will come up and you guys reach out to Mr. Davis, Anthony. I know people call you Tony, but I didn't think I should have to call you
Yeah,
that.
you call me that. It's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. But you guys reach out to him. And I have to give a special shout out to Bill Dodgett because he kind of sort of put us back in touch with each other.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Bill's great.
and yeah, Bill is amazing. If anything, he is like a genius. He's brilliant about the history.
He's an incredible advocate for African American composers, and he's done so much great historical work too. It's amazing.
Amazing. So if you have a project or something that you guys want to do, reach out to Bill, reach out to Anthony, commission this man. All you companies that I know, all you administrators that are on here are gonna see it. All you singers with clout, all you singers who do new works, reach out. But I appreciate you so much. I'm gonna
Oh,
talk to you after this is over.
oh, beautiful. Let's do that.
I'll call you. But thanks you guys for tuning in. On Thursday, Soprano Eileen Perez will be on at 8 o'clock on my regular Thursday. And Kiki Conversations, once again, we're sailing. So thanks, D'Anthony, and we are out.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You call me, right?
Yes, I'm gonna call you.